What's up and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where I, Treavor Bettis, talk to interesting people each week about idle champions and Dungeons and Dragons. And with me this week is Adam Bradford.
Hello, I am very happy to be here, and I have not been called interesting in quite some time, so thank you for that.
Oh, that can't be true at all. I don't believe that for
I mean,
for
people
a
don't say
second.
it anyway. They might feel it, but they don't say it. So thank you for saying it.
That's fair. That's fair. But Adam, first off, thank you for being on the show. Who are you for fine folks who may not know?
I am Adam Bradford. I am the Chief Development Officer for Demiplane, which is kind of a made-up title that we came up with that covers a lot of different grounds. So I do things with community, I do things with content, especially game content, but also streamed content and those sorts of things. And then I'm in charge of kind of our pipeline and business development and all those pieces. So a lot of kitchen sink there, but yeah, Demiplane, been there for a little over a year, and before that, I was a founder of D&D Beyond, and
Yeah.
so been playing this little game that we love for I guess 30 plus years at this point. I just keep getting older and older.
Because of the conversation we had before starting, you're a man of many hats, many cool hats, as
Oh
I
yeah,
pointed
yeah.
out.
Oh yeah, yeah. You like the Warduke hat, and
So
I'm a
cool.
big Warduke fan just in general. So I was just thrilled to see Warduke's reemergence here pretty recently. But yeah, I collect hats, and I think at this point in time, I probably have at least 10 plus that are directly Dungeons and Dragons related,
Oh heck
but
yeah.
but many others that are tangentially related. So so yeah, I'm a hat collector. I'm a collector of a lot of things. You can probably see behind me here. So
So this green screen here is a recent development. I used to have my setup over in a corner. I had all my D&D pop figures, all my
yes.
giant dragon minis and everything. I mean, heck, within arm's reach here, oh god, I'm gonna ruin everything. Did I
Don't
ruin
ruin it.
everything? No, I didn't ruin everything. But yeah, I got this big old chunker right
Oh
here.
yes.
You gotta
Yes.
have the nerdy stuff around you if you're gonna be doing nerdy stuff all day.
Well, I mean, we really are all of the hashtag blessed kind of comments out there. We are very blessed to be able to work in an industry like this, and
Absolutely.
it's just thinking about that somehow this hobby that I've had for all these decades has become a career, and there really is just nothing better than that.
Heck yeah. Yeah, but go back to the hat though. I don't know if you know this. Luke McKay, the artist for the webcomics, he loves Warduke. Like, and it was so great too
I've
because
talked to Luke about that before,
it
actually.
well,
Yes.
what was great. I found this out while I was in a meeting with Lauren, and she told us, oh yeah, Luke loves Warduke, and it was while I was working on our comic pack antics, and I went, well, I know what's going in this issue. So when I sent him that one to work on, he was just like, yes.
Yes. He's been waiting for it. Yeah, yeah. And Luke is outstanding. So I've
Oh
worked with
yeah.
Luke, in the past, and just one of my favorites out there. Does incredible work, and I love that he has been able to spread his helmet wings so much in this space. It's really encouraging to see.
I'm gonna be sure to use that around him of spreading your helmet wings. That's so good. I love it. But yeah, you talked about playing this game D&D for decades now. I always like to start these off with one of my favorite questions to ask really anyone that is in this community because it's always an interesting story. How did you get into D&D?
Yeah, and I love telling this story. And over the last several years, in particular, have told it so many times. And so, I won't say that I am like the main character in Big Fish too much, but I definitely it's a little bit of a fish story. So I hope that the details are consistent enough for people to believe me. But ultimately, I think that I grew up in Huntsville, Alabama. It's where I'm at right this second, and this is in the heart of the Bible Belt. And the Satanic Panic was a real thing when I was a kid, and it probably lasted here longer than it did in some other parts of the country. And so I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch the Saturday morning cartoon, and just adored it. When the Magic the Gathering sets came out recently, I bought all of that. I don't even
The
play Magic
cartoon
anymore.
cards are so cool. I
Yeah,
got them too.
they're amazing. I can't wait for Stormwreck Isle and the miniatures. So all of that. Can't wait for it. But big fan of that cartoon when I was a kid, and I didn't really know anything about the game that went on behind it. And I remember that my parents probably would have been perfectly fine with it, but other people's weren't. And so through kind of middle school and all of that, I ended up playing games that were not Dungeons and Dragons, but were pretty much the same thing. I'm in Scholar's Bowl, and I've got graph paper, and I'm making dungeon maps. And again, I had no idea that something like D&D existed at the time. And it wasn't dice, but it was like pick a number 1 to 100, and it was simulating so many of these rules. And so when I got into I think I was a freshman in high school, right when we started, ironically enough, a student minister at the church I was attending, it was very taboo at that point in time. But so it was not good to play D&D, but for whatever reason, the Force in a galaxy far, far away was okay. And so we started with West End Games Star Wars. And it just completely hook, line, and sinker immediately on that game. And so it wasn't long after that I was like, wait a minute, how did these things come about? Where have they been all my life? And so it was really, really natural to find D&D. And so it would have been, second edition. And we ended up pretty soon after that. I talked to that minister because he had definitely played D&D as a somewhat closeted activity in his past. But talked him into, oh, it's okay, like let's not meet at the church, let's go to somebody's house, whatever it was. And so we started playing D&D, and the first introduction was Dragonlance. And so I played that first session of Dragonlance, and I read the books like immediately after that. But like the first session we played, he was telling me like, oh, there are these books. And I went and got the old copies of books that were just
with
really
that awesome art on the cover.
Yes. It was just addiction. And so read all the books. But I remember the first character that I played in D&D was Kendrick Billings, which is a very unimaginative name at this point in time. But that character, I will never forget. It's kind of like they talk about if you ever go to play golf, which I've played a few times and I'm horrible at it. But if I had gotten a hole-in-one the first time that I went out there, I would have been hooked, forever. But with D&D, the first time I was creating a character, he was kind of, vicious and made us do the roll ability scores and just go straight down the list. And the very first time I was rolling for strength, I got the 1800. I didn't even know what was happening. And he is losing his mind. And I'm like, I don't know what happened, but this sounds great, And so I remember, when I got that, ability spread, and the rest of the ability scores were pretty good too. I ended up being a paladin and a knight of the rose, and we started playing there. And again, I was just forever changed at that moment. And a few years later, third edition came out, and I was in college at that time, and it just hit perfectly. And so third edition just bought the books for myself for the first time, and started running games, and just haven't looked back. And I've loved every iteration of D&D since, even fourth edition.
Hell yeah.
Adore it. So all of that has been wonderful. And again, it's become a hobby that has changed my life, and changed the course of my career and everything else. And I do. It sounds super altruistic or cheesy or whatever you want to say, but I believe that if everyone in the world would play these games, the world would be a better place.
I'm right there with you. I used to run games at a bookstore mainly for kids. And it was, I absolutely loved the times where, like, kids would be kids, and it's an imaginary game. It's like, I'm just gonna hit this dude with a chair like I'm a wrestler. And then I'd have the NPC go, why would you do that? That hurt. And they're like, oh.
It's like, oh, this isn't a video game.
Yeah, like several times I got to have that moment where it's just like, hey, sometimes like your actions have consequences. And then seeing this realization on a kid's face.
I love playing these games with children,
Oh
and
yeah.
I have two sons, and they are getting again. I'm the years go by very quickly, but 17 and 13 already.
Oh wow.
But from the time that they were very young, as young as they could understand what was going on, running games, for them and with their friends,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing the mind of a child come to this game, because playing with some of us who have played for a very long time, sometimes I love when you're thinking about it. It's like, I make an insight check, and a kid who is new to the game does not say that at all. Like they will come in and they're like, wait, like, do I think this person's lying? And so it's just, I love the way the fresh eyes that it gives when it comes to playing the games. And so yeah, I definitely have done a great deal of running games for kids. It sounds really cool that you were doing that at a bookstore.
Oh, it was a blast. I absolutely loved it. I would do it again. So we've heard about your first character, but now we're Isle Champions presents Black Pits is coming up. Or it may be happening while you're seeing this. Who knows? You're in the future, dear viewer.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Exactly. And you're playing your character Briv.
Briv,
Good old
steel, and
Briv's coming
arrow,
back.
yes.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about Briv in case people like this is their first time coming to an Isle Champions presents anything with Isle Champions. They don't know who Briv is. Who is Briv?
Briv was a character that became incredibly near and dear to me. As that's one of the best parts about this, is when we make these characters, these imaginary, make believe, not real at all characters, we relate to them on levels that I'm not sure any of us are ever going to really fully understand how we relate to them on those levels. And so Briv was this wonderfully great experience for me to play, regularly, and I still do play just like with the Black Pits here. Going to play Briv again. I can't wait to do that. But Briv started out in what kind of became the Heroes verse of a variety of different shows that started on D&D Beyond, and recently we kind of had a revival of that on Demiplane, and with those characters, it was Briv was kind of one of the last characters, because I'm certainly that person that comes into the group and it's like, hey, like, I will absolutely make a decision on what I'm playing, but if you want to decide first, like, I'll figure out. And so as people were starting to come together and figure out the kinds of characters that they were playing, I was looking at the group and I was realizing that there wasn't kind of the foil type character. We didn't have anything like that yet. And so, this is the character. There was just a tremendous amount of inspiration from Jane Cobb and Firefly, and some of the other characters that cause tension and problems, but again, they're not necessarily evil. They're but they definitely provide obstacles. They make things interesting. That kind of inspiration. Another inspiration was Amos from The Expanse. And so it was like thinking through those kinds of characters and what makes them tick and what makes them, what makes it possible for a character like that. Because, it's like I start watching The Expanse, which is, one of my favorite shows. And I watch that and I see a character like Amos in those first few episodes, and of course in the books and everything else. And it's like, why would they be with this person? It's like the question that you maybe start with. And I think that some of the great stories out there answer that question of why they would be with that person. And they allow those characters to dynamically evolve into something that is, greater than maybe where they started. And so I knew that we had an incredible cast that we were putting together in a group of players, and I knew that those were themes, and I knew that that was an evolution that we would have the time to explore. And so yeah, it was definitely kind of against type. I ended up playing Briv consistently for 3+ years, and playing with the same group of people for 3+ years. And over the course of that time, I think there were a few instances where people associated Adam Bradford with like Briv's personality. I'm like,
Oh no.
please do not think that I am like that guy. But it was really fun to explore that kind of character, and just again, thinking through how you can provide some of that tensions, comic relief, and those kind of things, of course, too. But how can you make things challenging for the group while you're still on the same side of the group, and while you are still contributing to the goals of the group. And so it was a really fun experiment, and was just a blast to play. And so really, that's kind of what came together. And then I do remember the biggest, we'll say decision, and I won't use the word mistake, but the biggest decision that I made with Briv. And so I'm a big Thor Odinson fan. Can't wait for Love and Thunder,
Oh, so good.
and all of this. So it's basically like, as Briv was coming together, I was like, okay, I could do an accent, I could do, and actually the path that I wanted to take first, that I thought would be so interesting, is there's this gem of a show called Spartacus that aired on Stars a few years
Yep.
ago. And the characters on that show have such a unique speech pattern that is supposed to echo and mirror, Latin and the languages they would have used at the time. And so they changed the order of pronouns and this kind of thing. And I was like, man, it would be so cool to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I practiced that for a few days, and I was like, I cannot remotely keep up with this. I was like, this is way too alien for me to be able to do it. And so I had to drop that pretty quick. And so we were coming up on our first episode, and at the time, not exactly knowing how long that was going to go on, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I love Thor, I love the Ultimate Avengers cartoon movie that they made many years ago. And I was like, I'm gonna just use an old English, like a fake old English accent with this character. And so that's what I came into with the first episode, and then I had to commit to it. And so I absolutely slipped over the years, but it definitely, a lot of people are like, it's so unique. It's completely ridiculous, of course, but very unique. And so that was the other thing that really ended up sticking with Briv.
I feel like if there's any, like, professional acting thing that like needs to have that grace period of getting into a character, it's got to be, because like, when you're doing a voice acting thing or whatnot, you've got a director there that's just like, nah, that's not quite what we're looking for, let's give that another shot. You're live testing out this voice. Like,
Yeah, it was, and part of it, I can certainly say that I don't know if I can remember the last time that I got nervous or embarrassed or whatever, and for good or ill. And so I would say that as I got in there, I just kind of went for it. And again, some of it was rough, but it made me think every single word that came out. And honestly, I think somebody at some point would message me each week and try to tell me how many times I used you instead of thou, or a variation of what you were supposed to use. And I was like, oh, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. But I mean, honestly, it got way less and less and less until they, finally stopped sending it. So yeah, I guess there was a little bit of improvement, but yeah, it was fascinating, because in order to do any of that, I had to kind of look it up a little bit,
mm-hmm.
And figure out how, which verbs you used and pronouns and etc. And then the other thing that was always just a catch-all for it is this is a fantasy realm. It is not Old
Yep.
English. It is whatever Briv was taught when he was when he went to Paladin school,
Paladin
and
school.
and so it's like all of that made it a lot easier for me to be able to slip into it.
Love it. So yeah, the Black Pits, this is this is not your first time with Idle Champions Presents. How was the first time you were on there?
Yeah, it was fantastic. There are, Codename has done such an incredible job of assembling just incredible players, just entertaining players. And some of my favorites I've already been able to play with here. I adore Mark Meir, and can't wait for more of those shenanigans. But as I was playing before, spoiler. So if you haven't seen something, in the past, there was an owlbear incident, and it was just one of, and I actually think that it won one of the community awards out there
Oh
for most
yeah.
touching moment. And it really was, it was like one of those moments, because we talk about all the time when we're playing these games, the concept of transference, when all of a sudden something that happens with your character affects you as a player. And I will say that there was this moment in the game, and this was a great example of how you can communicate within a group and make something go really, really, a different direction if you need to. But
Mm-hmm.
we had hit a break. And again, I won't get into too many details, but an owlbear had lost its life. And so, in the break, the players were talking about it. And it's like, wait a minute, we weren't quite understanding the situation, like, what can we do? And then this is where, I'm like, well, hey, listen, like, I was honestly thinking about this even when we came before we started talking. Briv's going to bring it back to life. And so it was like, when we came back in there and brought that owlbear back to life, it really, it kind of impacted me because I'm an animal lover anyway. And so of course a make-believe animal like an owlbear is,
Yep.
as I will do anything
Adorable
for it.
owlbear.
And so yeah, it was just really a touching moment, but it was also just so much fun. And then the last time that we were playing also, we ended up with some of the most ridiculous outfits imaginable. And I think some of them have been made into skins for the
Yep.
game, like, so all of that was so much fun. And so again, anything that is going to involve shenanigans, Briv is there for it. And the players really played ball with that. It was a blast last time.
That's fantastic. If I remember correctly, Briv was involved in the bar fight with who came to be known as Alabaster Booty Clap. But
Yes. Yes, that is very true. Briv is always down for a good tussle. So yeah.
yeah. That when I was starting up Champions Lore with Aaron and B Dave, that was like, when this was really picking up steam to happen. And I remember like hearing who the cast was and just going like, you're getting who? And they're gonna play with and
Yeah.
so when I heard that Briv and Havilar were gonna be in a game together, I'm just like, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be so good. I cannot wait.
Absolutely loved it. And again, can't wait for what we have ahead here, or might be going on, right now if you're watching this. But yeah, it really is, again, this concept that is starting to happen in our hobby is really something that is so compelling, and this idea of connected storylines that are happening in the course of streamed games.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating to see the advent of this, and how it has kind of come along in the last several years, because I think that many fans out there might not be fully aware of how important streaming really is for publishers and people who are doing work in the industry. It's
Yep.
become the number one way for people to find out about what you're doing. And so it's just such a compelling thing, and people are really flocking to it in the best of ways. And so I think that, what Codename's doing here with some of the, these connected storylines and characters, I love collection anyway. I collect so many
Yep.
things,
Yep.
and this idea of collecting characters in a video game like this is completely down my alley. And then being able to see those characters come to life in these streamed games, and be able to understand a little bit more of the personality
Mm-hmm.
behind the characters that you get to play in the game. It's really something.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but the last one that we did, Court of the Raven Queen, we had DJ Knight and Becca Scott playing their Black Dice Society characters, and like I edit the podcast for that, and so I'm listening to it, and they had a part where like they split up for a little bit and then came back after an hour, and B-Dave's like, so yeah, DJ and Becca, you all just had your Idle Champions Presents adventure in that amount of time, and you have all of your weapons that you got during it. Like just straight up continued it on, and I was like, that's amazing.
Yes.
The fact that we've got these two stream games on two different networks, and that one of them influenced the other one and vice versa. And that's so cool. It's so cool.
And that's what happened. It happened with what was going on, Heroes of the Plains, as well, because Briv had, done this pit stop, and also Alindra, who was one of the other cast members, she was involved in that game as well. And so Briv came out of that with a Ring of Evasion, which is a really handy magic item. And so when came back to the Heroes of the Plains show, it's like, hey, I have this. And one of the fascinating things about that is that really has a very old school feel to me, because it used to be, even before organized play was prolific out there, and all of that, there used to be this concept. And honestly, recently watched the new season of Stranger Things.
I was just gonna bring that up.
Yeah, but that's how they approached it.
Yeah,
right? Is that it's like,
when Erete lists off her character, I was like, yes.
That's how it used to be, is that you had this character. And I love thinking about it in the modern framework. It's really hard to imagine that people would feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
But many years ago, it was this idea that it's almost like this trust was extended, that whatever happened with a dungeon master here was similar enough and on the same page enough that it could translate and it could carry over. And so when you have these connected stream games where all these different characters from the multiverse can potentially come together, that level of connection and being able to have that continuity is really fun. And of course, as a player, you love that it feels like that whatever you're doing is contributing to the character's growth in wealth, and looking like a Christmas tree with magic items, or whatever else out there. That's always a really fun thing.
A Christmas tree with magic items. I'm going to use that. That's fantastic. But yeah, this time y'all are going to the Black Pits. Bailoff has invited you all for a small get together, and it turns out you're the main event.
That's it. And again, I love Bailoff anyway, and so I can't wait to see what this is going to be. And honestly, not that I would have been upset or anything like that if Codename had asked somebody else to be there instead of Adam and Briv. But I definitely think that's down Briv's alley. So I think it's right in that wheelhouse. And so this is basically what he lives for as a character. And so I can't wait to see what happens.
The fact that we're getting Briv, Tatiana, and Havilar all the same place,
yes,
in an arena, like I cannot wait for this. This is what I want.
I mean, I know very little, at this point. Again, it could be going on as you're watching this, but at this point I know very little. And I don't know if we're going to be teaming up. I hope that we are. I don't know if there's going to be any kind of infighting within the group, or whatever happens, but any of it's going to be very exciting to see. And again, like there's something just so classic about that arena concept. I
Yeah.
mean, you think about, I mean, one of my favorite movies from when I was a kid was Gladiator, like literally
Yeah.
Gladiator, and just that concept of a ladder that you're climbing and pushing through and fighting through. There's something really compelling about that. So can't wait to see it.
So what do you think now that we've got Mark Muir running this game this time? B Dave's in the player seat, which is another thing that I'm just like, an Idle Champions presents with B Dave as a player. That's gonna be wild. But
Is he playing freely?
he's playing freely.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Yep.
Wow,
Yep.
that's gonna be fun.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be fun. But what do you have like any like kind of ideas of like what you think might be different about Mark running these games compared to B Dave?
Yeah, what I can say is that I've played with both of them a good bit actually, and I've played with them both. What's interesting to think about is when as some of us have started streaming as frequently as we do, it's tough for us sometimes to find what we'll call a home game,
Mm-hmm.
like a non-streamed game where people, because there is a difference just in how you approach that, and neither one's good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
They both can be fantastic, and I've had the ability to play with Mark and B Dave in that non-stream setting,
Oh,
and,
nice.
and really get to see so much about how what their styles are, and
Mm-hmm.
how they approach running a game. And B Dave really is great, really phenomenal, and the approach that he takes is one that I myself really really love, which is a lot of embracing chaos, and a lot of yes and all of those things. And I think that with Mark, I actually haven't played in a game that he has ran yet, so
Oh.
I'm really looking forward to that. But I've played with him, and one of the first experiences that I had getting to know Mark, we were playing. It was a D&D fifth edition, but it was flavored as Marvel superheroes, and so we're playing these characters, and the group, I had kind of joined a little bit later, but the group had already gone through a great deal of the story, and I came in as Captain America, and so I'd put together a fully statted out version of Captain America. I think it worked really really well, and as I enter this game, Mark is playing Victor Von Doom, and
What?
yes, and so the first time that like I played with him, and like saw him interact with the other characters, he was doing Victor Von Doom, and he was doing a voice,
Oh
and,
my
as you
god.
can imagine.
Yeah.
And like it was in that moment that I was like, well, they should just cast him for Doom in the MCU. And but he was just nailing it, and it was just so fascinating to see how intentional he was in and whether it was preparation or improvisation, it's hard to say, because it seemed very very polished and everything else. And so it was one of the best experiences for just a couple of sessions there, and we wrapped that up, and the Avengers were triumphant. But ultimately in those couple of sessions I saw that Mark, I was like, wait a minute, this guy is just charismatic and compelling, and again, from that time on, became one of my favorites out there. Look for any excuse that I can to work with him. And my kids love the video games that he does voices in, and everything else. So yeah, I can't wait to actually play in a game that he is running, because the times that I've played with him as a character, I keep asking that question, like, man,
Mhm.
what would it be like to play in a game that he's running? And so that moment's finally here.
Yeah. Yeah, he's run a few games for Black Dice Society,
Yeah.
and those games have just been absolutely wild. And the character voices, like, I know, it's Mark Maron. That's what he does, but it's still in the moment. You're just like,
Pretty
God,
good at that.
Mark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like on the show, like he will switch from Brother Uriah to Aslan Rex just so fluidly. I cannot wait to see how he does this as a DM. It's gonna be absolutely wild. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Um, even knowing that, like, it's hard to expect what's going on and everything like that. I do have this one question that I think is a little fun. Which is like, do you hope Briv gets to do, like, is there something that you hope Briv gets to do in this?
Yeah, for Briv, everything really is about it really is about winning with Briv. And so
If there's a winner to be had.
yeah, I mean, and again, I don't know if that is in a versus mode with other characters, or with the PVE that's going to happen, or whatever. But Briv, and honestly, this is part of Briv. I embraced really early on with him, because this would have been around the time that the Unearthed Arcana version of, I believe it was called the Oath of heroism originally, and then
Yeah.
it eventually became the Oath of Glory. But throughout the play testing, but that Oath of Heroism and that concept, with the tenets there, that you're always striving to be better, you're always wanting to win, you're always willing to compete, all of those parts of the tenet there. And so Briv really embodied that kind of the entire time. And even in the course of his adventures in Heroes of the Plains, he went to Theros, and there was
Nice.
this they erected a gigantic statue of him, and
Fitting more into that Jane storyline too.
well, that definitely was a little bit of an Easter egg
That's
for
so good.
that Todd helped put in there. But yeah, so it's kind of like this concept that he likes that. And so definitely, I think for story purposes, if he doesn't win, that's probably going to be a great story. But the character's motivation, he's going to want to win, and most of the time he's going to want to do that at any cost. And so whatever is put in front of us, Briv is going to be thinking about it in terms of, okay, there are losers and there is a winner, and how do you become that winner part of that?
I've been hanging around B Dave too much, because now I'm just like, oh, now I do kind of want y'all to fight.
Yeah. I know it would be fun. Everybody always wants to do that what if about that, but I will say in the past, like, and I don't know if some of that will happen or not, but it's like, I will say that I've had that happen a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't, it's never gone as well as I think it would. And so I do think at its core, D&D is a pretty cooperative game, and so I think that's where it really shines. But we'll see how it shakes out.
Heck yeah. Well, speaking of stream games, y'all over at Demiplane have a stream game going on right now, Children of Erete. Tell me about this show. I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch it fully, and the more I hear about, the more I'm hitting myself for that. So what's going on with that game?
Yeah, so Children of Erete is a world and a game that is just straight out of the mind of Deborah Ann Wool. And she, we started working with Deborah. Gosh, has it been a year ago? And she started, running some games on Demiplane, and had a lot of excitement, and people wanting to play in those games. And so started really talking to her about some additional ways that we could work together. And one of the things that she was mentioning was that she had this idea that she had been popping around in the old noggin, as many of us who play these games, we I have a dozen of those right now, bouncing around up there. And she had one for a while that was this fairy tale for grown-ups, and this idea that really is a classic one. So when she initially started telling me about the feel of the world, and I told her at the time, I was like, look, if we end up doing something with this, I'm going to be playing in it, so don't spoil anything. But definitely, like what's the tone going to be here? And it's that classic concept of walking through the back of a wardrobe, or going outside of the fence and stardust, or like whatever it is, somehow falling into another place. And again, I can't even at this point in time say realm or world or dimension, because I don't actually know what's happening. But we'll say another place. And what would that be like if what would that be like if you were the stranger in that world? And if just like if an elf all of a sudden showed up in our world, we would think that that was very unique, and we would
Yeah.
probably be doing all kinds of scientific tests, and we would probably be doing, just so much would happen if that happened in our world. But what would that be for ordinary old humans,
Hmm.
to fall through the veil like that? And what would that mean in another world? And so that really was kind of the core conceit here. But she honestly had me at fairy tale for grown-ups.
Yep.
And when she started laying out a little bit more what she wanted to do, we were like, hey, we need to make this happen. We've got this great cast, that changed a little bit over time, but a very core group of people who have been playing together for 3+ years. And then Deborah's just one of the best in the entire space at facilitating and spinning a yarn, and pulling those threads, or putting those threads out there. And so it really was just a very easy decision for us at Demiplane to give that oxygen to breathe. And so yeah, we put that together. And then the cast, so Deborah runs the game, and so she's storytelling and game mastering that. And then with the rest of the cast, I am playing. We have Jen Kretschmer, who is playing. Of course, she's got Alindra and Idle Champions as well. Codename's own Lauren Urban is
Yeah.
playing in that game. And we also have Alicia Marie, who is just been an incredible addition that has come into the game. And then Hope Lavelle, who has the character Penelope in Idle Champions. So this just incredible cast. We've played together for so long now, and the amount of preparation that went into everyone creating their characters and the backstory is just mind-boggling. And it really shows when we're playing. And the thing that is fascinating to me right now is us as players, we don't really know what's going on. Like we don't know what's over the next hill. But then the thing that we do know is that these abilities, that we're just ordinary normal people that somehow get pulled into this other place. And what does that mean if you have spells? What does that mean if you have class features, and how might those look, and how might you explain those if you didn't believe in magic, or if you
Hmm.
didn't know that magic is what was happening to you? And so again, it's the modern world meets this fairy tale. And it's just a really great cast coming together, and telling a really just great slow burn story of discovery. And so
Hmm.
again, I've got to be a little bit vague because there's a lot that's happened in the first 10
It's
episodes.
fair.
But yeah, it's something worth checking out. And if you haven't caught up to those 10 episodes, they are 2-hour episodes, so that's a little easier to catch up with. But
Hmm.
then the other thing is, we are planning on putting out some the story thus far,
Oh, very cool.
kind of content pretty soon here. And then wargamer.com, they actually run synopsis articles each week after that, so you can catch up that
Very
way.
cool.
But it's really been something that's become very precious to me and the rest of the cast. And it's a long-term thing. Like it's going to be a story of like I said, discovery and transformation. And we're buckling up and getting ready to tell it.
That's awesome. Yeah, the when Lauren told me that y'all's classes aren't like public knowledge. Like that's not something that you're sharing because it's this mystery element of it. And that was really kind of the thing that I'm like, that is so unique and different. I really I want to see this. So but obviously without going into detail of your class, who's the character that you play?
Yeah, so I play a character named Silas Jordan, if that's his real name.
Oh, more
And
mystery.
yeah, I love teasing that, but yeah, so Silas Jordan is he is a I think the best way to summarize this for Silas is he is a proxy for kind of like an ultra fan out there, and so he very much has inspirations with like Scott Lang Ant-Man, um, and um, and there's certainly a little bit of that Jack Black and even a little flavor of the book version of Ready Player One, and that kind of thought that it's like he's a fan of so many different things out there, and he is a collector, and that's one of the places where typically for all of my characters I have something that one element of that character that is something that I'm pretty familiar with, because it gives me a little bit of a foundation for me to kind of jump off of, and then I intentionally choose things that I am not familiar with, because that's the fun part of learning new things. And so for Silas, the collector aspect is something really familiar with. But the idea is that he is from the Atlanta, Georgia area, and he owns one of the US's largest comic and game and toy shops, and so he very much is immersed in that, and he's been doing that for many years, and he's gotten pretty bored with how complacent things are now, and so essentially all of the characters in this show ended up getting a ticket to get on a train tour of just this magical kind of old timey train tour, and so Silas got that ticket and said, hey, this is a way to kind of break up some of this monotony, and he also has some ulterior motives, that there's maybe something he's interested in collecting along the train route, and so he feels like to some degree he's going to get back in the game a little bit there.
That's awesome. It's very cool. Yeah, that is definitely at the very top of my list for next shows to check out. So I can't wait to do that, and I hope viewers, you check that one out, because everything I've heard about this show is absolutely fantastic and sounds magical. So but yeah, we're running low on time here. Adam, thank you so much for joining us and talking with us. If people wanted to find you on the interwebs, where could they do so?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Bad Eye Adam. That's a great place to find me. You can find me on the Demiplane Discord and forums for sure. So you can reach me there. And we have some incredible things going on at Demiplane. Lots and lots of great ways to connect with some of your favorite games out there in the TRPG space. So check that out at demiplane.com.
Absolutely. And don't miss Adam playing Briv during Isle Champions Presents The Black Pits. Who
Huzzah!
knows what's going to happen? It's going to be a wild ride, and I cannot wait to see it. Adam, thanks again so much for joining us. That's been this week's episode of Idle Insights. So until next week, take care of yourself.
Later, Gators.